Trump's attack on Iran has plunged the Gulf into chaos.
Panic, chaos and injuries at the Dubai airport.
Incoming fire has not stopped.
Israel shot down an Iranian ballistic missile over Tel Aviv.
The Iranians hit back.
The supreme leader of Iran is dead, and an energy crisis looms. Dubai, previously thought of as one of the safest and most prosperous countries in the world, is under attack, along with the other GCC oil-producing states, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, and the rest of the United Arab Emirates. But what is this really about? What most people don't realize is that it all leads back to China. Take a look at the stretch of water between Iran and Oman. It's only 33 kilometers across. This is called the Strait of Hormuz. The GCC states supply oil all over the globe. It's how they achieve their extravagant levels of wealth. 20% of the world's oil flows from the GCC states through the narrow Strait of Hormuz to the entire planet, but mainly to Asia, India, Pakistan, South Korea, Japan, and China. India, the most populous country in the world, depends on 60% of its oil from this region. Japan, 75%. China, 40%. The Prime Minister of Japan has said that if the Strait of Hormuz was to close, Japan would run out of oil in 8 months, and the economy of Japan would collapse. The GCC countries use the strait to export oil and import food. 80% of their food is imported through the strait. 60% of their water comes from desalination plants, which Iran is now targeting with missiles. If the strait remains closed and the missile strikes continue to be successful, the GCC states will collapse. And if that happens, they'll take the entire US petrodollar system with them. What is the petrodollar system? The US petrodollar system is basically a deal made in the 1970s where countries, especially in the Middle East, agree to sell oil in US dollars instead of their own money. The deal was simple. Saudi Arabia would sell its oil only in US dollars. In return, the US would provide military protection and support. Since Saudi Arabia was the largest of the oil-producing countries, the other ones soon had to follow suit. Here's the big idea. If every country needs oil, and oil is sold in dollars, then every country needs dollars. As a result, the US dollar was able to cement its status as the dominant reserve currency of the world. In return, oil-producing countries often invested their extra dollars back into the US economy, like buying US bonds. This is called petrodollar recycling. This system gave the United States huge amounts of global power, and it's a huge reason why it has been able to maintain its hegemony for so many decades. So, if this war risks the collapse of the petrodollar system, why has Trump taken such a massive gamble? Let's look at China. China is the biggest importer of Iranian oil, almost 1.5 million barrels per day. Trump's attack on Iran makes China's energy supply less secure and potentially much more expensive. That matters a lot because cheap, stable energy helps power Chinese factories, exports, military and economic growth. By squeezing Iran, the US indirectly squeezes China's access to reliable oil. Since Iran is heavily sanctioned by the US, it often sells oil below market price to willing buyers. That gives China cheaper energy than many competitors, which helps keep Chinese manufacturing costs low and therefore keeps its global trade position strong. There's also a financial layer at play here. The US sanctions system works through control of the dollar and the global banking network. When Chinese companies buy Iranian oil, they often have to use complex payment systems, smaller regional banks, or informal arrangements to avoid US penalties. Every time Washington tightens sanctions, It forces China to either reduce its purchases or accelerate its efforts to build financial systems that don't rely on the US dollar. In other words, Iran becomes a testing ground for whether China can escape US financial dominance. You might have heard of the BRICS alliance. BRICS is a group of countries that want more power in how the global economy is run. The original members are Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. Recently, they were joined by more countries: Egypt, Ethiopia, UAE, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia and Iran. BRICS countries want more influence in global decision-making. These countries have large populations and growing economies, and they argue that the current system doesn't reflect that. They've created their own development bank to lend money to member countries. This gives countries another option besides Western-controlled financial institutions. I know what you're thinking. This can't be much of an alliance if Iran has just bombed Saudi Arabia and UAE. But this reflects just how messy geopolitics and economics can be. Countries at war still trade with each other. Despite conflict, BRICS countries could still share their economic goals. The attacks on Iran see the US backing up its economic sanctions with military force. Sanctions enforcement basically means making sure a country like Iran actually feels the economic punishment the US is trying to impose. The idea isn't just to hurt Iran directly, but to scare off other countries or companies from trying to get around the rules. So sanctions enforcement is really about protecting the power of the US dollar and showing that breaking American economic rules has real consequences. In other words, keeping the US dollar at the top of the food chain. Iran sits at the centre of the world, the trading and strategic linchpin between Asia and Europe and the Gulf. So, by controlling Iran and the Strait of Hormuz, the US can control the global energy supply once and for all. Iran is the final piece of the puzzle before the US can have total control of the region. And what's more, the fall of Iran would dramatically hamper China's rise as a rival superpower. China might think twice about invading Taiwan if they lose their cheap supply of Iranian oil. That's why this is a risk Trump is willing to take. If you want to understand more about why this is all happening now, why the US is lashing out to protect its global reserve currency status, and how China is challenging it, you can watch this video here, where we explore the topic more deeply. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.